But, Mark, we're going to move on into down by the bayou into the New Orleans Saints, or I'm sorry, am I saying it wrong? Should it be the New Orleans Saints? Is
I think you said both of those wrong. So
did I say just quit while in my head?
Something like that. I don't know. We're in Chicago.
Here, help us out. We're Chicagoans trying to be cool for you New Orleans fans. But
I don't think we're trying to be cool. I think we know we're not cool in this situation. They don't like us right now.
We are talking New Orleans Saints, and for this preview, you had to take them away from me, didn't you? You had to steal them away from me. You weren't happy with you weren't happy with Mark Ingram, were you? Like, that wasn't enough for you. You had to go away and take Adrian Peterson as well. I know he only played 3 games, Mark. I know he only played 3 games last year.
Yeah.
But he was my guy. That was my guy. That he's like, let me put it this way. Mm-hmm. At work, I have a Vikings background. I noticed this week, it's Adrian Peterson. I have to find a new one.
Yeah, you do.
Because it's an Adrian Peterson Vikings background. So I have to find a new background at work. But the true question I'm getting to is, Adrian Peterson only played 3 games last year, got injured in the Green Bay Packer game. With Melvin Ingram, he is now the second running back in the depth chart. How good are the Saints going to be with now both Ingram and AP on this team?
Well, there's certainly a lot of potential. Because you got Adrian Peterson. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, it's weird when you see Adrian Peterson on depth charts and he's the second running back.
And he's not injured.
Yeah, it's a weird phenomenon right now to have happen. So this is a team where if these injuries don't show up for Adrian Peterson, as you said, he only played 3 games last year. If he doesn't get hurt, then, I mean, this is deadly because the New Orleans Saints were the number 1 passing attack. Mm-hmm. And they were in very, straight in the middle, average running game. Now, you just get Adrian Peterson's going to make it even better to where you have an above average to possibly good, great running game. You got, almost the greatest show on turf right now.
Yeah.
Now, of course, Brandon Cooks isn't here anymore. I think that is something that's worth talking about when you say that number 1 passing game. And then we also got to talk about what they tried to address in the draft quite a bit, which is the entire defense, one of the worst defenses in the NFL last year, and quite a few years prior to that as well. So offensively, this team is deadly because they have Drew Brees, they have Ingram, they have Peterson, they have all these weapons that they can take advantage of. My only kind of question is, I like Michael Thomas. I don't really like Ted Ginn that much.
He's a drop machine.
Yeah. We were just talking about that.
Yeah, he's a drop machine.
How big of a loss is this going to be for them?
Is Brandon Cooks, you're saying?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be huge.
I think that's the bigger question because Adrian Peterson, sure, he's going to be good. He's going to make this team better if he's there. If he's not better, it's still a good to, slightly above average running game. It's just that huge missing piece of a great wide receiver who's now in New England.
I mean, I'm going to play devil's advocate just a little bit to my own point. Like, my first reaction is, yeah, it's going to be big. It's going to be huge. However, the thing that I kind of think of, and this has kind of been the Drew Brees philosophy ever since he's been
in New
Orleans.
Because I'm going to get 5,000 yards.
It doesn't matter what your name is. Drew Brees is going to find you. Like, how many times in fantasy over the years has it been like, well, you know what? This guy's the number 1 in the Saints. I'm going to go and pick him. And it's like, great. Willie Snead had 5 touchdowns today, and Brandon Cooks had 1. Yeah. That's an exaggeration, but you guys get my point of Drew Brees is going to find you. Mm-hmm. Drew Brees doesn't care what your name is, what do you do. As long as you can catch the ball, he's going to throw it to you.
But that's the part. You got to catch the ball, Ted Ginn Jr.
And, I mean, the thing is, Ted Ginn Jr. to me is a question mark only because of the dropsies that he tends to have. But, I mean, I look at this team. Michael Thomas had more targets, a few, by like 5, more targets than Brandon Cooks last year, more receptions actually too, almost
more yards,
20 more receptions than last year. He didn't have more yards though. Brandon Cooks had 1,173. Michael Thomas had 1,137. So they inversed each other at the end, but similar touchdowns, 9 for Thomas, 8 for Cooks. I think Thomas could be like the number, and I feel like that's slighting him by saying, oh, he could be. No, Michael Thomas is the number one option.
But the
on
problem
this team.
is your number 2 is a guy who's got drops.
I think Willie Snead, I think at the end of the year, it's going to be, when we're looking production-wise, not on the field, but production and yards, how it will turn out is Michael Thomas will have the most yards. Willie Snead could now be a 1,000-yard receiver this year. Because think about this.
Well, he wasn't that far last year.
Well, he had 895. Now you're taking away Brandon Cook. So Willie Snead's going to get a lot more looks on the receiving end. He could get a few more touchdowns.
I mean, Drew Brees is going to get 5,000 yards because that's what the man does.
Yeah.
The ball's got to go somewhere. So somebody else is going to get over 1,000 yards for sure. I still think, though, that as much as Drew Brees is one of these rare quarterbacks, the Peyton Mannings, the Tom Bradys, the Aaron Rodgers, who it doesn't matter who you are, he's going to make you into a good wide receiver. You still have to work with what you have to an extent. And Brandon Cooks is quite the loss. So we'll see. I'm not saying it's a death sentence. This was the number 1 offense last year. At worst, it becomes the 5th best offense this year. It's not like it's going to be a terrible thing to lose him, but I do think it makes a difference, especially if Adrian Peterson turns into yet another injury, so he wasn't much of an addition at all. Then your offense isn't necessarily better than it was. It's the same as it was.
Here's the thing, though, with Adrian Peterson, and this is the interesting thing for the Saints this year, is the big thing in Minnesota that, I mean, it kind of worked into Adrian Peterson and just kind of the kind of player that he was, but a lot of times what teams would do is, hey, we're playing Adrian Peterson, we're going to load the box.
Of course.
We're just going to load it up. And what they can do is, because Adrian Peterson isn't the main bell cow for this running back system, what they could do is, hey, Mark Ingram, up the middle, up the middle, up the middle. Hey, that defense is creeping in. Fresh legs, Peterson out there. Boom, outside, and he's gone.
I'm just excited to see that play where both of them are on the field at the same time.
Which one do you go for? Which one is the ball going to go to?
That's going to be exciting to watch. So, I mean, it's certainly going to be a great offense. There's no question about how great this offense can be and should be. The problem is really the defense.
Well, and I like what they did. Like, in the draft, you mentioned the big draft pick for me was Marshawn Lattimore. Because for 2 years now, I mean, they got Kenny Vaccaro last year, but for me, the last 2 years, we had mocked them cornerbacks. 2 years ago, it was, I'm blanking on his name, the kid out of Florida that I want to say went to Tampa Bay, mocked a cornerback to the Saints. They didn't go cornerback. They go Kenny Vaccaro. It's like, okay, thought you would go cornerback, but you didn't. This year, you mock them with a cornerback. They go with a cornerback. And Marshawn Lattimore, to me, could be a guy that helps anchor this secondary, where it's like, okay, we got good things in the future. However, is this defense, like, is that enough? Is Marshawn Lattimore enough to say, yeah, this defense is going to be leaps and bounds better than it was last year?
Well, I mean, it's tough because leaps and bounds, I mean, this was one of the worst defenses in the NFL. So it should be better. I mean, Lattimore's a great addition. I don't know about Marcus Williams because I don't think safety was that huge of a need for you. And he's currently, if you want to pay attention to our lads, he's currently sitting at like number 3 on the depth chart.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's the big addition. I do like Ramczyk, the offensive tackle out of Wisconsin. You know, I was a big fan of him coming in. And I think 32 was a great steal for them to get him because I think he's such
I thought he was going to go in the first round.
Yeah, such a talented lineman. Well, he did go in the first round.
No, I thought he
barely.
was. Yeah, I thought he was going to go. Like, I had him in my mocks in like the low teens, upper 20s.
Yeah.
For where he was going to go.
And then he goes 32. So, I mean, they definitely get Marshawn Lattimore, which is a good addition. It's going to be tough because I don't know. Drew Brees has shown that he can put up his numbers and this offense is going to be successful. But time and time again, this defense lets the team down. Because when a team is scoring as many points as the Saints are, 29 points a game, yet that defense is still giving up 28 points a game. I mean, I know you still have the advantage barely, but that's not a good situation to be. If this defense was just average, this is a Super Bowl winning team.
Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at the schedule right now only because, I mean, you look at last year, and the one thing that's similar about the Saints last year that I just mentioned about the Panthers was you look at games like, and shoot, my computer just turned it to 2015. Don't want to be spouting out those scores, but you got Raiders week 1, 1-point loss. The Giants week 2, 3-point loss. You look at Kansas City, 6-point loss. You look Denver, 2-point loss. Carolina, 3-point loss. You look at the Buccaneer game, 5-point loss.
Yeah.
And then the last week in Atlanta, a 6-point loss.
And this is not the situation you want a guy like Ted Ginn Jr. dropping the ball.
No,
just wanted
don't.
to rub the salt in your wound one more time, Ricky.
You don't. However, the thing that I think, like the games to me that are going to be the most important for the Saints are the divisional games, because you look at last year, split between the Panthers. You won the home game, they won the home game. Against the Bucks, they won the home game, you won the home game, and then you lost both against Atlanta. And I know that last one in New Orleans, you almost stole from them. You have to me, I feel like in the division, if you're going to lose 2 to the Falcons, you have to either steal 2 from the Panthers or steal 4 from both the Panthers and the Bucks. Mm-hmm. And you could do it because you almost beat those teams in your road games with them.
It's interesting. This team easily can go 4-2 in the division. They can easily split the whole division. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're gonna go too far in a way because the Falcons are too good. The Buccaneers are really good.
I think I'm seeing the same thing as last year. Just 2-4 in the division.
2-4?
2-4.
I don't know about that. I think they'll at least split the division.
You think that they'll actually beat the Falcons this time, or
I think they can?
Or you think it's going to be lose 2 to the Falcons and then they beat the Panthers?
Well,
twice?
They certainly could do it that way, but I definitely think they can beat the Panthers. Mm-hmm. They got the offense to go matching up with them. It's just a question of can that defense make a stop, and that's what they tried to address with Lattimore in the draft. I see this team easily as an 8-8 team. It's just a question of can they get a little bit better than that?
Is that on the best end, or is that that's where they are?
I think that's right where they're at. I don't think that's the best. Now, this is a team where I don't think the best is going to be, an 11-win season or something like that. I think 8-8 is pretty much right where they're at. They have not an easy schedule. They're going to go against a lot of tough teams, but this offense should be really good. It's just a matter of when they're playing some of these also really good offenses out there, is their defense going to be able to step up to stop them?
Do you want to know what record I have them with right now?
I'm going to guess like 7-9.
No, 5-11.
Oof.
And the reason why is I feel like between I had them split with the Panthers, split with the Bucks. Basically what they did last year. We'll win the home game, you'll win our road game. Teams win at home, and then the Falcons, I've got them beating you twice. And I mean, the thing about the Falcons this year that's very interesting with the schedule is last year it was, hey, we played you like week 2 or week 3, and then we played you at the end. This year, they get the Falcons 14, then they play the Jets, which would be like a bye week for you, and then they play the Falcons again before playing the Bucks. Like, it's just, the schedule is very hard. Like, I have them, honestly, within the, and I mean, take week 1 with a grain of salt because I am a Vikings fan, and that could flip, especially Adrian Peterson playing against his old team coming back home. But I could see this team starting 0-6 to start the season.
You know what's going to be pretty important for the Saints? Some of these games that are going to be not a clear and away win, but a should probably win.
Like the Dolphins, like the Lions.
I wouldn't say the Lions, but the Dolphins, the Bills, and the Rams. Those games that are you probably should win it, but be careful type of games. Those are going to be very important for them because if they start to lose some of those games that they should be able to win, the schedule's too hard to really be forgiving for them. in that case when they're going to probably lose to the Patriots, probably lose to the Packers. They're playing the Falcons, they're playing the Buccaneers, which are both teams that I have probably going to the playoffs. They're going to have tough games out here. Redskins being a potentially tough team as well. They can't afford to let any of those other games pass by them. And that Dolphins game is in London. So not always easy to go to London and have to play. Especially if they
could be a tie.
Could be a tie. Especially if they lose, the 3 games before that, like you're kind of predicting. It would be rough to then go into London and potentially lose 4.
Yeah, and I mean, the big thing that I feel like this team, the big thing they have to do, and I mean, Saints fans are going to say, well, Ricky, you're kind of putting a microscope over this. I feel like this team needs to play better on the road because last year they were 4-4 at home and only 3-5 on the road. And I say the microscope because people are going to say, well, Ricky, 1 win on the road and we are, boom, 500 all the way around last year. But I see, like, out of the wins that I have, 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the 5 are at home. The only road game that I have them winning is against the Rams, and that's because I am not high on the Rams at all, even in Jared Goff's second season. However, there are games like the Dolphins, like the Lions, I'll even say, because it's in New Orleans, like the Bills. If you flip those 3 games, you're sitting at 8-8. So, like, to me, the worst case scenario is where I have you at, which is 5-11, or maybe even, let's say, God forbid, you get like a game where like the Bears beat you or the Rams beat you, and you're a 4-win team. But your best case scenario is like if everything goes perfectly, you're sitting there right there at 8-8. Like, this is not a team that's going to be challenging for a playoff. This is not going to be a team that goes and challenges for the division in my mind. This is a team that sits like at the best right there middle of the road, 8-8.
And the flip side is if one of these teams we expect to be good isn't,
like the Buccaneers.
if the Buccaneers turn around and they're just not what we were expecting out of them,
or if the Falcons have a
Carolina Panthers like season,
not Super Bowl hangover, but yeah, like Carolina Panthers.
then all of a sudden this team is gonna potentially get another win or 2 and be competing for a division or at least a wild card. But yeah, we're gonna see, because right now I had them pretty much at 8-8.
Well, and this is always this is the division where we always talk about year in and year out. Well, it's like, well, Atlanta won it this year. Who's winning it this year? Because it's usually never the same team. Like,
a lot of people have Tampa Bay slated penciled in right now.
You know what, Tampa? We're gonna get to them, but they could be a huge sleeper coming into this year. Like, you think 2 years ago it was Carolina. Last year it was the Falcons. Could the Saints or the Bucs kind of be the team to sneak up into it? I don't think so. I think this offseason has been, woo, hype. We got Adrian Peterson, but the schedule's going to be way too tough for the Saints. And really, kind of like what you were saying with the Panthers is how I feel for the Saints. The defense, although I like what you did bringing in Lattimore and stuff, I do think that it's going to be your Achilles heel, and Drew Brees ain't going to be able to shoot you out of every game, especially when you do play like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Ryan twice a year, Jameis Winston twice a year.
That's been the downfall for them in the last few years. So,
do you have any other things you want to mention about the Saints before we kick it off to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
No, I'm good to go.
This is where we kind of kick the conversation off to you guys. Saints fans, let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Are you guys higher on your team than us? Or how do you expect your kind of dual running backs in Ingram and Peterson to fare this year? And really kind of the offensive question is, how do you feel the wide receivers are going to do without Brandon Cooks out there for the wide receiver since he is in New England? Let us know down below in the comment section.